Yeah, it's mindset cafe, we all about that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive.
What is up, guys? Welcome on another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It is your boy Devin, and we are joined, and I am honored to have him on the show. Scott Parker. He is an entrepreneur. He is a restaurateur. He is a sobriety coach who's built honestly an impressive portfolio over the last 25 years of business, in Arlington all the way to the greater, Washington, D.C. area. And after getting sober in 2010, Scott really gained the clarity and took action and really turned his vision into reality that he has, envisioned. And now through his sobriety coaching program, he's basically been able to help other entrepreneurs and business owners take control of their drinking and really unlock their full potential. So I'm looking forward to this. I know you guys, it's the new year. So if this is an issue that, you or someone that is dealing with, this is the time to make sure to share this episode with them. So Scott, thank you so much, man, for taking the time out of your day to hop on the Mindset Cafe.
No, thanks, Devin. Appreciate it, man. Great to be here today.
So let's dive in a little bit. Before we dive into, the sobriety and all that, let's dive into your backstory, right? What led you to start, becoming an entrepreneur, right? What was that initial, I'm going to become an entrepreneur, light bulb for you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think part of it was just how much I really couldn't stand 9-to-5ing and office jobs after college. I got out of school in 2005. So co-working not co-working, teleworking and working from home wasn't really a thing then. And I found myself in one 9-to-5 after another, really just not enjoying how I was spending my time. And I was kind of in my young to mid 20s. I just had this vision that I wanted to be, a bar owner. I had worked in restaurants my whole life. And I was still kind of promoting then and bartending then. And I'm like, you know what? I can't stand these jobs that I have. I got to find a way to be an entrepreneur and do my own thing, or I'm just going to be miserable for the rest of my working life.
So was there an incident, or because I still remember like the day and the exact incident that I was like, F this, I'm doing it. I'm jumping full ship. Was there that bridge that all of a sudden you're like, this is it?
I think it really was just how much I hated my first job. The first job I had was selling insurance. So I had to sell auto insurance, home insurance over the phone, something that people you're talking to on the phone really don't care about. I had to wear a suit there every day. I only made it, I think, 6.5 months before I quit the job. And I actually developed ulcers at one point during the job because I was so miserable just sitting there all day. And I think I just kind of was like almost having a breakdown at that point. I don't know if there was an exact moment, but it was sort of a really bad 6 months of just like, I can't do this the rest of my life.
So you had to wear a suit even though you were just calling people on the phone?
Yeah. It sounds crazy now in 2025 to say that, but that's exactly right. You had to wear a suit every day. There would be times, maybe once every couple weeks, once a month, where you would see a client face to face to get them to sign their documents. But the great majority of it was actually fax machine. You were still faxing stuff back then, but fax machines and over the phone and people signing online. So we were never seeing people, and we were wearing suits every day to the office. It was absolutely miserable.
I mean, I'm in the fitness space. I own a gym and a gym franchise. And so just wearing a suit in any form or fashion, unless it's a wedding, I'm not wearing a suit.
Same here. I tell people now the only time I'll put on a suit is for a wedding or a funeral. Outside of that, I'm never going to do it again.
Yeah. But I mean, I do get the concept of wearing a suit, even though you're making phone calls. It's like, when you look good, you feel good, you do good, that whole thing. So I get it. You look professional, so you feel professional. And I could get it. I mean, I would be like you and be miserable, but I could get it. So you had that job, you felt miserable. Then what was the first entrepreneurial step for you?
Yeah, so I was 24, 25 then. And so I went back to what I knew best, which was waiting tables. And I didn't know anything then about getting investors or bank loans or anything like that. So I basically just started waiting tables and bartending, but also working through other 9-to-5 positions for about 6 years of working 2 to 3 jobs. And I saved all the money that I needed to until I had enough to open my first bar, which was in 2012, and I was 30 years old then and opened my first bar. And that was the first project I did, entrepreneurially, and it was a real big success. And from there, I started to figure out kind of what else can I do in the entrepreneur space.
Okay, so you went the bar route,
Yeah.
and then was it like a bar restaurant? Was it like a dive bar? What kind of?
No, this was a full-on bar. It was I don't know what you want to call it, a party bar. It wasn't a club, but it was Friday and Saturday nights, nightlife. Sunday fun day, we would do over 1,000 people for Sunday brunch and turn it into a day party. Sports. We also had happy hour, a little bit of lunch, a little bit of brunch. So we did a lot of everything. But it was a very, very sort of raucous, wild party bar back then.
I got you. So was that the initial start of the drinking, like for you, or was that already a problem kind of leading into this?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is that I actually stopped drinking 2 years before I got my first bar. So I drank from like 17 to 27, and then I quit when I was 27 and a half, almost 28. And then I finally, once I got sober, got my act together and ended up opening a bar, which is really strange because, I had just given up drinking and now I opened this bar that's like this crazy party place. But, it really helped me focus on executing the business side of things, and also just seeing people partying all the time and kind of seeing what it does to them at times really helped me stay sober in a way, because I realized I don't kind of want to go back to being that way,
No, I get it. I mean, I've been DD before. I mean, when I was in college, I was in a frat and everything, so I get it. And when you're sober and everyone else is wasted, it is the most annoying thing, sometimes to deal with your friends when they're wasted. Oh, yeah. And so I get it. But yeah, I mean, that is kind of crazy that was the concept you went with, because I'm sure you, when you opened the bar, you weren't like, this is going to help me not drink, right? Yeah. So like, what was your thought process knowing that you just, became sober? You're 2 years into, sobriety, which, I mean, my mom was an alcoholic. So, I mean, I completely know what it's like, or at least from seeing it and dealing with all my life, so what was that initial thought process? Because it couldn't have been, this is going to help me not drink.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think what it was that it's just what I knew best. Leading up to that, I was also in a frat in college. I was sort of the social chair, so I had a lot of experience throwing parties. I also had a lot of experience promoting events. I would promote bars and clubs in the DC metro area in DC. And I had worked in restaurants and bars my whole life, and I kind of had built this social group of people that went out, people that wanted to go to events, wanted to go to parties, party buses, stuff like that. So it's really just what I knew best. It wasn't that tough because I had kind of made my mind up on the drinking thing. I knew I wasn't going back. I didn't really feel sort of, a craving for drinking or like I was ever going to slip up and drink. And so what I knew best was bartending, throwing parties, promoting events. And so even though it was it was strange to a lot of people to this day, when they ask about my first place, it was called A-Town. And they're like, you never drank there? And I'm like, I never drank a sip the whole time we owned the place. It's shocking to them because of how wild the place was and what a party spot it was. But it really kind of locked me in and gave me the discipline business-wise to do it successfully. And again, it was just what I knew best from a business standpoint was events, parties, promoting, that kind of stuff. So it was still kind of a natural fit from a business standpoint, even if it wasn't a natural fit for my personal habits.
No, I get it. I mean, it, like, a funny analogy to kind of compare it to would be like, don't get high on your own supply kind of thing. So you're thinking of it, you're thinking of it from like a business standpoint. Like, it's business. This is what I know. Yeah. This is where, I'm comfortable. And I do agree that every single day that you didn't drink while you were there, because it was an opportunity. You're the owner. You could, have a drink if you wanted to. I mean, obviously it eats into your profit, but you every single day not drinking only reaffirmed, day after day, how strong your commitment was to being sober. So I do commend you for that, because that is not easy. That is
I appreciate it. And yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I would see what alcohol does to people on a daily basis. And it kind of put me in this weird place because a lot of people knew I was sober and that I was starting to work with people to help people get sober. So I would have some people who were my own customers then turn into the guys who were asking me like, hey man, like I know you don't drink. Could you talk to me about it? How'd you do it? That kind of stuff. So it's like I'm kind of playing both sides. Like on one side, I'm serving alcohol. On the other side, I'm helping people give up alcohol. And I'm kind of just like in the mix, on both sides there.
So you open your bar, right? And then how long after did you really dive into like the sobriety coaching program?
Yeah, so I was sober 2 years before I opened my place. And within a year of being sober, I was already working with one or two guys. So I kind of was doing it at the same time. Right when I was opening the bar, I was already working with some people. And then I just launched, my sober program, Locked Back In, I call it. I just launched that professionally about 3 or 4 months ago. And that's because as time went on, it was more and more people I was working with, mostly men, a couple women along the way. But more and more guys really reaching out to me over the years. And finally, I started to realize, like, you know what, man, I'm doing this so much anyway. I'm really helping people. I think I've got a little bit of a knack for this. Maybe I should launch it as a full-on coaching program and see if I can help, guys around the country, around the world, potentially that I don't even know. And so that's what we've started to do. But I was always doing it. I think right from the beginning when I got sober, I remember helping one of my friends who stopped probably 6 months after me. And then over time, it's been a bunch of guys along the way.
No, that's awesome. So I want to dive into that a little bit, like how, we'll go into the coaching program and everything as well, but yeah. I want to know your story on your obstacle of overcoming alcohol, right? Because obviously I have my mindset on it, but I don't have that crave for it. But watching my mom go through it and stuff and seeing other people go through it, some people can just quit things cold turkey. Yeah. But not everyone, right? Yeah. And so what was your initial battle? Was it a cold turkey, or was it, did you try to stop, kind of, fall off the wagon a little bit, come back on, and then, how was that?
Yeah, sure. So I actually stopped for a few months when I think I was about 24 or 25, and then I stopped permanently when I was almost 28. But I wouldn't say the first time, I wouldn't say I was on again and off again, because the first time I think I just knew I was taking a break. And then for the last few years, I think I just knew deep down, I was so sad. I was so heartbroken, I think, by alcohol, and just knew that, like, man, this isn't for me. I got to stop this somehow. This is hurting me so bad. And so eventually I did just stop sort of cold turkey. I attended a couple of classes as far as AA, and I definitely met some great people there and learned a lot there. But I never worked the steps. I never had a sponsor. I never stayed in touch with the people there outside of just sitting in on classes from time to time. And it really was just me developing sort of the wherewithal to do it on my own and in my own mind. And, that was at the end of a 10-year career. I started when I was 16 or 17. I drank hard almost every day, probably for those 10 years until I was 27. And I think that even when I was 17, 18 years old, I already knew, like, man, I like this way too much. I'm really obsessed with this drinking thing. I think I'm almost already addicted within a year or 2 years of getting into it. And I think I knew I'd be a problem drinker my whole life if I didn't find a way to figure it out. And luckily I did, but it took 10 years, and it took sort of some of those really sad, dark times and rock bottom moments to get me to that place.
No, I definitely hear that. So, I mean, for me though, like, I get it, especially in the frat scene, being in a fraternity, like, believe me, I was the same. It was, 17, 18, we were drinking Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday we were drinking, and it was like, for me, it almost helped because I got burnt out. Like, I didn't want to drink anymore. Like, it was just like, it was the same thing over and over for me. And then also probably the fact that, my mom was an alcoholic, and seeing that kind of deterred me from doing it. But it got old quick for me, but that's not, I have friends that, still go just as hard. And I'm like, that honestly, it's kind of impressive, but I want to ask you your perspective on something, because you being a sobriety coach and digging into the mindset, that's something I really like to do, is like really think about the analytical side of things. So a lot of people I've heard, or not a lot of people, I've heard from a few people that basically something like AA or something like, therapy, where it's consistently bringing up the topic, always brings the topic to the foremind, and it doesn't allow you to overcome the obstacle, right? Because like, do you get what I'm saying? Or
Yeah. No,
so
I do.
what are your thoughts on that?
I do get what you're saying. I think there's something to be said for it. It's like we are what we obsess over, and whatever we think about the most will become, right? So it's like, do you want to spend all of your time thinking about, I can't stop drinking, I can't stop drinking, I can't stop drinking? Or do you want to start to think about other parts of life, or open your mind to the possibility that you can stop, or what you want to do now that you have stopped, and stuff like that? I think analytics and you have to think through the problem. I think that's the biggest challenge for everybody. I think for a lot of people, a traumatic event or something from their past is what they're using alcohol to bury, right? Whether they had a really rough childhood, whether some specific event happened in their life that they just can't get over. A lot of people have that thing that they're trying to get through. I think what's most helpful for people is realizing what that is. So whether something really bad happened to me when I was a kid, or some insecurity that I had, or really thinking about that more so than even thinking about the alcohol itself, is really what's going to help you get through it for most people. It's very rare that someone just has no issues, personally, mentally, and they just got way hooked on alcohol. Usually they're doing it to push something else aside, or to hide something about themselves, or to get over something, right? So I think that's really what should be addressed most of the time. I do hear what you're saying. I think, sitting around talking about just the drinking itself all the time can only take you so far. What you'll hear is it's not just about stopping drinking. It's about learning to live without alcohol. So I think really focusing more on that and how to live in the future, and then also focusing on what has happened to you in the past. Those two focuses can often be a lot more important than just thinking on the drinking itself. You can develop systems to keep yourself away from the alcohol, and a lot of people can get off the alcohol, can stop drinking, but then it's how do they develop the mindset and the strength mentally to keep going forward once they've put the alcohol down, so that they don't go back. And that's really the biggest challenge.
No, I agree. That's exactly where I was meaning to go with it. And you said it a lot better than I was, asking the question. But it was like, there's so much more to life. And if people that are still going to AA after 10 years and they haven't had a drink in 10 years, it's like, you're still bringing up the fact that you're drinking. It's like, there's other areas of life that you could be really focusing on, and you're living proof of that. Right. So transitioning now into the coaching side of it, right? What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that maybe entrepreneurs face when it comes to drinking, or just in addiction in general?
I think for entrepreneurs, just their general makeup can be a challenge, because someone who pursues alcohol or has any sort of an addictive personality, they're pursuing it all the time. They're almost aggressive about it. It's something they do religiously, consistently. And that's sort of the makeup of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who gets after it. They are, whatever they do, they're doing it full tilt, right? And they're doing it every day, and they're doing it, as aggressively as they can pursue it. A lot of times an entrepreneur is the same type of person that is a problem drinker, because you're just doing something all the time. You have an obsession with something. You're pursuing something so aggressively. So I think there's definitely something to be said that people who are successful entrepreneurs, successful, aggressive business people, they often have that same makeup of an addict, where like, I'm going to do this all the time. I'm going to do this 100%. And that's certainly what it was for me. Like anything I do, I'm going to do aggressively. I'm going to do it every day. I'm going to pursue it, very passionately. And that's sort of the same thing as someone who has a problem with drinking as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's honestly spot on. Like every entrepreneur that I've met and that's in my circle has an addictive personality. And that's why their businesses are successful, because you're addicted to your business. You're addicted to winning. Right. Yep. And that can definitely transpire in other areas. So whether it's you're addicted to your personal development as well, you're addicted to fitness, you're addicted to alcohol, we already tend to have the addictive personality. It's just where you kind of harness that energy into. What would you say? Because I mean, me, like even myself, like I'll drink if it has to be a very special occasion for me to drink, right? And it's just not because I have a problem, just because I just personally don't like it. But for someone that maybe doesn't know that they have a problem, what would you say they may want to think about? Or if they're questioning, do I have a problem? What would be the first question you ask them?
Yeah, I think I always tell people that I'm talking to, how do you feel when you have a really honest conversation with yourself and you say to yourself, am I happy all the time? Or how often am I happy around alcohol? Like if someone says to me like, I only drink a few nights a week and I only have a few drinks and I feel good when I drink and I don't have much of a hangover and it never makes me upset or hungover or sad and everything's fine. Well, that's great, right? But there are a lot of people who are sort of these weekend warriors who are only drinking, on a couple of days a week. But when they do, they drink way too much. They're hungover. They're upset when they do. Maybe they have a fight with their significant other, and they're doing it just because it's something they've done for 15 or 20 years, or they're doing it because everyone else they know drinks, or on the weekends there's nothing else to do, or every time they go somewhere socially to a dinner, to an event on the weekends, everyone else is drinking, so that's why they are. And people never really stop to take an inventory of themselves and their drinking habits and say, wait a second, is this making me feel good? Is this adding value to my life? One thing I'll always say to people is sort of the percentage thing is like when I first started drinking at 17, it was like maybe 99% good and 1% bad. So like 99% was like everyone my age is drinking. It's brand new. It's super cool. It's so fun. Everyone's doing it together. We're all enjoying it. Okay, maybe once in a while I either get in a little trouble or I drink too much and I get sick, but I'm young, my body's processing it, I'm not hungover, I'm doing great, like everything's great with it, right? And then as I got to 27, it kept sliding and sliding and sliding. I got to be 27 and it was like maybe 1 or 2% good and 99 or 98% bad, right? And like, okay, I feel good for the first half hour that I'm drinking, it's all fun. But then after that, I feel bad. I'm not who I want to be. I'm hungover. It's making me sad. It's hurting my body at this point. It's making me do things I wouldn't do. It's making me say things I wouldn't say. I'm becoming a person I don't want to be. And so very easy for me to take the inventory in my 20s and say like, all right, this is barely any good left and a lot of bad here at this point, right? And so I think what I would always recommend to people is just be honest with yourself and how do you feel when you're honest with yourself about it? And so many people these days, as they get older, are saying like, honest, I really took time to think about it and drinking's doing almost nothing for me at this point. Like it's hurting me in so many ways. It's so much bad and it's so little good, but I actually never stopped to think about it just because everyone does it. Everyone I think agrees at this point that alcohol is one of the most dangerous, or if not the most dangerous drugs on this earth, but it also happens to be a legal drug. And so because it's legal, we think that it's okay to abuse it and, let it hurt us at times and be hungover. But if it was anything else but a legal drug, we wouldn't do that, right? Like I'm always saying to people, like, if you made a new friend and half the time the friend was good to you, and the other half the time the friend was like smacking you in the face or telling you that you're a bad person or saying terrible things to you, you would cut that person off instantly, right? You wouldn't even think about it. You'd be like, why do I need this friend? Now, this person's hurting me. But because alcohol is so socially acceptable and it's been in our lives for so long, it becomes this thing that we let hurt us because, we're so used to it and because everyone else is doing it as well.
No, yeah, I do agree with that. And just because something is legal doesn't mean it's good for you.
Right.
So diving into that, because you mentioned a friend kind of thing. You've built over 25 businesses. I want to go on a tangent and we're going to circle back. You built over 25 businesses. What's your secret to creating maybe a successful partnership or to find someone that is going to align to be a successful partner?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first did restaurants and bars, I did that because it's what I knew best. And everything that I've done since then has been generally because someone else knows it best. So we launched a small chain of barbershops. We've launched a small chain of dog daycares. We have a small boutique boxing studio that has a couple locations. And so I'm approached by a lot of people these days who want to open brick and mortar businesses, which is what I tend to do, is brick and mortar and, retail locations, stuff like that. And what I'm always looking for is really just a couple things. First off, do I think that this person is super passionate about what they do and they'll really work hard at it? Do I think they're an expert in what they do, that they really know this industry or this business inside and out? And then third, are they just a good person, an honest person that I can trust? And if I can line all those things up, then I'll pretty much jump in probably much faster, than most people would. And that's been, a real secret to my success. Like the barbershops that we opened, we've got 3 of them now. We're getting ready to open a 4th. They're absolutely packed. I would call it, without being, not even about me, but more about my partners, I would call it the best barbershop, chain in the DC metro area. And that's because when I met my two partners, one of them was cutting my hair at the barbershop that he worked in. He's like, hey, can we talk to you outside of here? We met outside of, the haircut. We met, and he told me what they wanted to do. And they were just two really good guys, like really good people who had a combined, like at that point, I think over 20 years of experience working in barbershops and cutting hair. And so for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, these are good guys who I can trust, who are going to work hard at this. And they're also really good barbers who really care about their industry. And, that was 2018. And fast forward to today, the brand is on fire and we're getting ready to open our fourth shop. And it's just a really successful brand because of who they are as people. So I'm looking for people who are experts in what they do and are really talented at their craft. And then I can bring my stuff to the table, which is, the branding, the marketing. I can bring lawyers and accountants, and I already know how to build out spaces with contractors and architects and stuff like that. And we can team up and work as a team and build something really successful.
No, that's super awesome. And I think that's huge, because even when I'm bringing on a new franchisee, like we're opening up in Tampa and I'm in California, one of my things aligned with what you're saying is, if I couldn't have this person at a family barbecue, like, I'm not bringing them onto my franchise system. Like that's just one of those critical things for me. It takes, just like you were saying, like, they're good guys. Like, it's like, who would you want to, you're creating not a marriage, but a marriage in a sense. So it's like, you have to really think about that. So I think that's awesome that you've kind of really expanded your thought process and didn't just bring people on to be one of those entrepreneurs or investors that's just, bringing everyone on, trying to create a huge portfolio just because. It's like you actually have established values within your portfolio. So that's super awesome. So circling back from your partnerships, do you have any partnerships that have been a result from your coaching program?
So not yet. I don't think so. I've started to talk to a couple different guys, but I think most of the people I'm working with are still kind of finding themselves. We've only been live with the coaching program for about 4 or 5 months now, and I just had a guy move to Miami to sort of to make a life change. Another guy making some different business moves, but no one yet that I've partnered with from the coaching program to work on this stuff.
Okay. The reason I asked is because, like, going back into the addictive personalities, you might find someone that's already has that addictive drive, and that is kind of one of the key elements to success or potential success, right? What is, with your clients in your coaching program, how do you help them really dig into the accountability and discipline of it, though? Because, like, with AA and stuff, I know it's like you show up to the meetings and that's the accountability. The discipline is, kind of formed in the same fashion of the steps, but are those the best methods? Not in my opinion. I feel like there's other ways to really create self-accountability or self-discipline on top of, the peer accountability and discipline. So how do you in your coaching program really develop that?
Yeah. So the first thing we'll talk about is where they drink, when they drink, and sort of some of their triggers. So one guy, for example, I'm working with, he was spending like $3,000 to $4,000 a month on DoorDash cocktails, basically ordering DoorDash drinks from different restaurants and bars. And so very easy step there is just deleting his DoorDash app. That was the first thing. The second thing for him was getting it out of his house. So the first thing from a discipline standpoint we worked on was you can't use delivery apps anymore, and you cannot have alcohol in your house under any circumstances. And so we sort of made his house his safe place. And we've even said, like, he's a high performer and a hard worker and likes to go to bed early. And we've even said, like, look, like, we know obviously for maybe most people bedtime is 9 or 10 or 8 or 9, whatever it is. But for you, like, if you get off work at 5 or 6 p.m. and you feel like you're going to drink or something, as crazy as it may sound, it might be 5:30, you just got done work. Our first step is for you to go to bed right there, because you don't have alcohol in the house. You're not going to have a way to get to it. And when you're in bed, you can watch Netflix or you can mess around on your phone or whatever. But, like, this is like your safe space. And so we developed sort of a strategy for each person to have a safe space around where they're going to be so that they're not going to drink. And if they have this certain group that they usually hang out with or this certain place they usually go to that they drink, they're going to have to cut that stuff out, at least for the first bunch of months, until we develop real discipline to make sure they're not going to drink. The second thing is we'll do either weekly or bi-weekly Zoom calls where we'll get on there and talk about how things have been going for them. And we'll always leave that call by us both agreeing and me saying like, look, our next call is a week from today, on Thursday at 5 again. Whatever happens over this next week, good, bad, ugly, whatever, you got to promise me you're going to get to that next call without drinking. And when we load up the Zoom and we jump on this Zoom call, we're both going to celebrate and be happy that you didn't drink. And if you do have a challenge, this weekend or sometime next week, you have my cell phone. You can call me and we can talk through it real quick. So I will make my cell phone available to these guys so that if they have a weak moment and they're like, man, I think I'm going to drink or something's going to happen. They'll contact me. And the great majority of the people I work with, I would say are closer to like a problem drinker than a full-blown alcoholic. Like, I don't know if I'm qualified to help someone if they're waking up in the morning and chugging a bottle of vodka and drinking all day, every day. That person really needs probably more, medical help, or to maybe go to a facility for a few months or something that's a little bit above my pay grade. I tend to work more with guys who are, like I said before, the weekend warriors who are just drinking to a point on the weekends or certain nights where they're not happy. And I can get them over the hump with a couple conversations to the point where it'll change the way they see alcohol. It'll change the way they think about their problem. And we can usually get them to a place where they'll make it through the week and they won't drink. But if they do have a weak moment or they're in a certain place or they're at an event, they don't feel good, they're at a wedding, they're at a birthday, and they feel like they might drink, they can always call me on my cell phone and we'll get through it. But the goal is just to get to that next week's call where we both get on the Zoom and they haven't had a drink and they're feeling good and we move on from there.
No, definitely. Yeah. And I think if someone is waking up and starting off drinking and they're that heavy of a drinker, you almost need to go to a facility, because one thing I've seen, again, from my past is, there is alcohol, there can be alcohol withdrawals, right? Yeah. And that is a real thing. And depending on how severe, like, they actually can be dangerous too. So, someone that's at that level, it's like, you do need some professional, like, attention while you're doing this first transition. And then after you make it through that first transition, then, your coaching program would essentially keep that discipline and accountability where they're not physically, confined into a facility, because then it's like, once you have freedom, it's like you can't you're not ready to be completely, free to your own devices, I guess, to a degree. So yeah. One thing I want to ask, because again, not knowing personally, only from, textbook and from other people saying, but with your clients or from what you've experienced, they say that there's a 21-day hump, right? When you're trying to curb cravings. Is that, in your opinion, is that true? Is it longer? Is it shorter?
Yeah, I think it all depends on the person. I think it's very situational. I think sometimes when people have a rock bottom moment or they're so just disgusted with alcohol, they can almost be ready from the beginning to just say, like, enough, right? How long the actual cravings last, I don't know if 21 days is something that I would say I've seen at least, but I would say, yeah, the first month or two is when you really are feeling the cravings. And then after that, you've gotten through it and you can have a different mentality around it. But I think it really depends on where people are mentally and emotionally with it. Some people will have brutal cravings and really want to drink, much longer than 21 days, as months go by. Other people, again, will be like just so sick of it all and so ready to move on that, I've had some clients where by the time I start working with them, they're already a month or two into not drinking. And they're like ready. And I tell them, like, you're the easiest clients I've ever had because you're ready to do this. Like, you've already got the mentality. Now we're just going to continue and develop tools to help you keep that going. But you're already like so far along. So I don't know if I've seen enough to say that 21 days is like the craving timeline. But I think it really differs for each person, at least that I've worked with.
Oh, no, that definitely makes sense. The craving thing, I was coming from more of my fitness side. I don't know how much it tied into addiction, but yeah. I know for like people when we're like from when I was doing personal training and even now with the gym, it's like when people are starting a nutritional plan, it's not like a, crash diet or anything, but when they're starting to change those things and you're cutting out certain things, you'll get those cravings and for different sweets or sugar and stuff, for 21-ish days. Again, also it does depend on the person, but that's usually a number you can tell people and they're like, okay, I can do this for 21 days, Yeah. So what is the most rewarding part, in your opinion, for you helping people through, their sobriety with your coaching?
Oh man. I think, I just think the other businesses that I'm a part of, we can offer different services, but with this, when you help someone get over their drinking problem, it really will change their life. And There's no feeling like that in the world when someone can be healthier, be happier, be a better family member, be a better business person, whatever their goals are. It's rewarding in a way that you can't even explain. It's like every business and service is providing something, right? People are coming to you for something, and they're getting something out of working with you, or they're getting a product, or they're getting something else. But when you can really help someone put their drinking problem aside, it's rewarding in just incredible ways, because it really will change their life. And then for each person, where they go with that will be different. Some guys may just, to the fitness aspect, some guys may just start working out a lot more and get in the best shape of their lives. Some may develop a better relationship with their partner, their spouse, whoever it may be. Some will see their business go from, here all the way up to here, because now they're thinking clearly and they're pushing harder than they've ever pushed before. And so, each person and where they go with the sobriety and how it impacts their life is different, but it's definitely going to impact their life. I mean, there's just no way that someone can have a drinking problem and be drinking a few nights a week or every night or a bunch of nights, and then all of a sudden be sober, be clear-headed, be making better decisions, and not just take off. They will take off and do better. And that's like a feeling like you just can't believe when you get on there and how happy people are. You feel like you're making a difference, and that's incredibly rewarding for sure.
No, I definitely, I hear that. I mean, that was one of the things that when I had my personal training company before the gym, that was something I told people that, there's a side to it that's more than just money and financial. It's the rewarding feeling that you get when a client comes to you and they want to show you their progress picture. They want to tell you, the good news that they just dropped the size in pants and whatever the case may be. Yeah. And there's no feeling like it. And the feeling comes from a place of seeing them proud, or the pride they've developed in themselves and the self-confidence that they've built in themselves, and knowing that you were able to have a positive imprint on their life, that is going to change their relationships, their life, and all that kind of stuff. So that's so awesome. So the final question I want to ask you, I like to ask everyone this, and I like the authentic answer. So that's why I didn't give it to you ahead of time to think about. But on Scott's legacy wall, you get to leave one message, right? That message could be in the sobriety realm, it could be in the entrepreneurial realm, or it could just be in general. But what would be that one lasting message that you would leave for the up and coming generations?
I guess it would be, just really get to know yourself and be honest with yourself about what you want. I think there's so many things that are grabbing our attention in the world these days, or vying for our attention, that we all oftentimes end up in these situations or in these paths, career paths, life paths that we really don't want to be in. And I think that if we don't stay true to ourselves and do what's really in our hearts, and really ask ourselves, it could be, do I really want to continue drinking? Well, maybe I don't. Do I really want to continue on in this career? Well, maybe I don't. We'll end up spending our lives in ways that we really don't want to spend them if we don't stay true to ourselves. So I think it would be, get to know yourself, be honest with yourself, and do what's best for you would be the lasting message.
No, that's awesome. Well, where can people connect with you, or, find out more about what you have going on with, the sobriety coaching and everything, especially if, with the New Year's, if that's some of their New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, sure. So the easiest place are, I guess, my website and also my Instagram. So my Instagram is just my name, Scott Parker. And then my website is Scott Parker Brands, BRANDS, scottparkerbrands.com. That has a bunch of information on the companies that I'm a part of and that I've created with my friends and family. And of course, my Instagram, Scott Parker. You can hit me with a DM. I always get back to everybody, and look forward to connecting with more folks out there.
Awesome. And guys, if you guys need that, it'll be in the show notes. If you guys are watching on YouTube, it is also in the description. If you or someone is dealing with alcohol problems, make sure you guys send them over to Scott, because it is something that is difficult to deal with, especially on your own. So I know it firsthand, from my past, dealing with my mom and stuff like that. So I know if we had someone like Scott, that could help her outside of AA, I think it would have been a lot different. So Scott, I commend you for everything that you were doing, man. Make sure that you guys, give this episode that 5 stars and share it so that the rest of your community can hear and benefit from it as well. But Scott, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Evan. Appreciate it, man.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Just in the game of life, mindset causes shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slacking. I hustle harder, I go